Hello friends, in this video we will learn initial value theorem and final value theorem, and on the same topics we will solve some gate numerical. Let us begin. Let us understand what initial theorem helps you to get. So initial theorem will help you to get the value of x of t at t equal to 0. For example, suppose I have some x of t signal. So if you look at this signal, can you tell me what is the value of x of t at t equal to 0? So as you can see, at t equal to 0, the value of x of t is 5. Am I right? So you can get the value of x of t at t equal to 0 if the graphical representation of x of t is available to you. This is the first way to get the initial value of x of t. Second, let's say you have some expression of x of t, like let's say x of t is equal to cos of t, and now you have to get initial value of x of t. Then it is very easy. Substitute t equal to 0, then it becomes x of 0, which is cos of 0, which is 1. Meaning that if x of t signal is available graphically, observing x of t, we can easily get x of t at t equal to 0. Secondly, if expression of x of t, that is a mathematical expression of x of t, is known to you, substituting t equal to 0, you can easily get x of t at t equal to 0. In spite of that, there is something called as initial value theorem. It means if there are many ways to get x of t at t equal to 0, why do we still require a theorem? Let us understand what is the need of it. Initial value theorem is required when x of t is not given to you, but what is given to you is x of s. I repeat, you require initial value theorem when x of t is not given to you, but a Laplace transform of x of t is given to you, and from that if you want to get x of t at t equal to 0. So let me tell you when you require this theorem. So third case is that what is given is x of s, where x of s is nothing but a Laplace transform of x of t, and you know what is they are asking you? They are asking you the value of x of t at t equal to 0. So this is something that is required, or this is asked. Then I'll tell you what is a traditional approach. What is given to you is x of s. So step number 1, take inverse Laplace of x of s and get x of t. But sometimes taking inverse Laplace of x of s is not that easy, because most of the time x of s given is not in the standard form. You have to follow some procedure to get it into standard form, like you have to apply partial fractions and then you have to find the constants. So it takes some time and somehow you manage to get x of t. I'm not saying it is not possible, it is possible, but it is a time consuming. Somehow from given x of s, modifying that x of s into standard form, and after taking a Laplace inverse, you will get x of t for sure. And this is about step number 1. Step number 2 is to substitute t equal to 0 in x of t, and therefore what you get is x of 0, and x of 0 is called as initial value. So third way, when x of s is given to you, and if they are asking you x of t at t equal to 0, just take Laplace of x of s, get x of t, and substitute t equal to 0 in x of t and get x of 0, where x of 0 is called as initial value. Then if you don't have to follow this and still you want to get it in a shortest time, then the solution is use initial value theorem. So in third case, x of s is given and they are asking you x of t at t equal to 0, easiest way to use initial value theorem. Like, so here fourth is nothing but alternative to option 3, x of 0. What is meant by x of 0? When I say small x, it means it is x of t. So x of 0 means x of t at t equal to 0. It is equal to limits s is tending to infinity s times x of s. So I hope this is clear. So when x of s is given to you, just substitute in the formula, multiply with s and substitute s value equal to infinity, and whatever answer comes, that is x of 0, and x of 0 is called as initial value for x of t. So this formula is known as initial value theorem. So initial value theorem helps you to get x of t value at t equal to 0 from x of s without actually using inverse Laplace transform. It saves your time, and I'll prove this while solving the problem. Let us start with a final value theorem. So what is meant by final value theorem? Like initial value theorem helps you to get x of 0 from x of s. That is, even in this case, final value theorem helps you to get the value of x of t when t tends to infinity. So when you substitute value of t as infinity, what you get is x of infinity. Remember, you don't have to take literally t equal to infinity, because t substituting infinity or experiencing t equal to infinity, it's not possible. Am I right? So x of infinity means mathematically it is known to be a final condition. So if you want to get x of infinity from x of s, final value theorem is used. And you know what is x of s? X of s is nothing but a Laplace transform of x of t. So without using inverse Laplace, if you want to get final value, then it is given like this: x of infinity equal to limits s is tending to 0, s times x of s, where x of infinity means it is x of t when t is approaching to infinity. So please remember, this x of infinity is known as a final value. So initial value theorem and final value theorem helps you to get x of 0 and x of infinity directly from given x of s. But even though it is true, it has some limitations. So there are some terms and conditions which you need to follow if you want to get initial value and final value. So meaning that even though the formulas are available, it does not mean you can use it the way you want. There are some terms and conditions that we need to see. Let's go to the next slide and see what are the terms and conditions. Terms and conditions for IVT and FVT. Your IVT stands for initial value theorem and FVT stands for final value theorem. So IVT and FVT are applicable only for causal functions. So let me tell you about causal functions. For example, suppose f of s is given to you. Am I right? You know that this f of s is nothing but the Laplace transform of f of t. This f of t function must be causal. What is meant by causal function? Causal function is that function which is 0 for t less than 0. This is also called as a right-handed function. So only if your f of t, the given function, is causal, only then initial value theorem and final value theorems are applicable. For non-causal and anti-causal systems, initial value theorem and final value theorem formulas cannot be imposed. Now the question is, what is given to us is f of s and not f of t. Then is it possible to identify whether the initial value theorem and final value theorem is applicable for given f of s? Yes, you know that by using ROC, and by observing ROC, you can identify whether the system is causal or not. I hope you remember how to identify causality of the system looking at ROC. Whenever ROC is to the right hand side with respect to a given pole, only then a function is said to be a causal. Am I right? So please keep this thing in mind. IVT and FVT are applicable only and only for causal functions. So those are causal functions which are 0 for t less than 0 in time domain. So on initial value theorem, there is only one condition, that is it should be a causal function. But when it comes to a final value theorem had some extra terms and conditions. Let's see. Final value theorem is further applicable when there are two conditions. Let's see a very first condition. All poles of S f of s are in left half of S plane. For example, let us assume f of s is equal to some constant k in numerator s into s plus 2, s plus 3, right? So I have to check poles of not f of s but s times f of s. So let us multiply f of s with s, then this is equal to k upon s plus 2, s plus 3. So this s gets cancelled when you multiply s with f of s. So when you say f of s is equal to this, if you want s times f of s, you have to multiply s on both the sides. So what we had in the denominator was s, so this s got cancelled. So as you can see here, there are two poles. You know that how to get poles? By equating denominator of the given f of s to 0. So when you equate denominator equal to 0, then s plus 2 into s plus 3 equal to 0. So you'll get two poles, one at -2, the other one at -3. So poles are at -2 and -3. As you can see, those poles are lying on left half of the S-plane, and therefore I can say that final value theorem will be applicable for such function. So you have to always see a given function, multiply with s, see to it all poles are lying on left half of S-plane, and only then a final value theorem is applicable. Otherwise you can say that final value theorem is not applicable. So this is about a first condition. Look at the second condition. Final value theorem is applicable only when function is not oscillatory or unbounded. So final value theorem is not applicable when the function is not oscillatory. So for example, a function is oscillatory, then final value theorem cannot be used. Let me give you an example. Suppose you have some function f of t, and let's say it is equal to sine of omega naught t. So let us assume even omega naught equal to 1, so I can take it easily like this, that is sine of t. And sine of t, if I want to plot, let me take multiply it with u of t. So I'll take a right-handed signal. I'm taking right-handed signal because whenever I say only sine t, then only sine t can be considered as this signal which is present at left hand side also and right hand side also. But you know that whenever we are using these two theorems, that is either initial value theorem or final value theorem, a very first condition is that it should be strictly a causal function. So when I say it is causal function, then it must be multiplied with u of t. So it is sinusoidal signal but only present at right hand side. On left hand side it is 0. So in this case, as you can see, the amplitude of sine t is 1. So maximum amplitude is 1, minimum amplitude is -1, and this is a time scale t. Now the question is, what we are interested in a final value theorem, am I right? You are interested in final value theorem means f of t at t tends to infinity. So what you want is f of infinity. Now look at this signal. This is something which is not constant, which keeps on oscillating between +1 and -1. So can you tell me exactly the value of f of t when t approaches to infinity? Answer is no. You cannot tell me because it keeps on oscillating. You never know. In fact, when t tends to infinity, still f of t must be oscillating. And when it is oscillating, exactly at what point it would be, no one can tell you. So f of infinity in this case is not defined. This is not defined. So one thing is clear, y function shouldn't be oscillatory when you want to have a final value theorem concept. Secondly, a function is not even unbounded. So function shouldn't be unbounded. For example, if I have some ramp function, this is what we call as ramp function, which is, tending to infinity. So when time approaches to infinity, the value of ramp function also approaches to infinity. And whenever they are asking you to use a final value theorem, then it is expected that final value theorem should turn out to be a finite value. So it should always give you a finite value. So final value theorem is not applicable when functions are either oscillatory or unbounded in nature. Also, all poles of s times f of s must lie on left half of the S-plane, and only then final value theorem can be applicable. So now to summarize everything, first point, final value theorem and initial value theorem are applicable only and only when the systems or functions are causal in nature. That is the first point. Secondly, final value theorem is further applicable only if all poles of s times f of s must lie on left half of its plane. Secondly, function shouldn't be oscillatory and function shouldn't be unbounded. So these are the conditions to have final value theorem. Now we can start with the problems here. So Laplace of f of t is given, which is f of s, and they're asking you initial value and final value of f of t respectively. So let me start with f of 0. So I'll be using initial value theorem here. And if I want to get f of 0, what is meant by f of 0? F of 0 means f of t at t equal to 0. So by initial value theorem, it is limits s is tending to infinity, s times f of s, which is equal to limits when s is tending to infinity, s times, let me copy my f of s, which is twice of s plus 1 whole divided by s square plus 4s plus 7. So you know very well how to solve this problem. So whenever there is a limit problem and when s value is infinity, try to take all s common from all the brackets. So in numerator, I'll take s common. So what remains inside is 1 plus 1 by s whole divided by. So from denominator, I'll take s square common. What remains inside? So in place of s square, what will come is 1. In the place of 4s, it will be 4 by s plus 7 by s square. So what is going to happen? This s, and s square gets cancelled. So now wherever there is s, just substitute s value as infinity. So in numerator, we already had 2. So it is 1 plus 1 by infinity. In denominator, it is 1 plus 4 by s, so it will be 4 by infinity, plus 7 by s square. So infinity square is infinity itself. Anything upon infinity is 0. So it comes out to be 2. Moral of the story, f of 0 is equal to 2. As you can see, when I say f of 0 is equal to 2, there is only one option which matches, that is option B. So option B is the correct option. In this case, sometimes you are lucky that you have calculated f of 0 and it is matching with only one option. It might not happen. It might happen that option A and option B having initial value to be same. Then you have to go for even final value. In this case, I'll still calculate final value. So how to use a final value theorem? You know very well. Final value theorem means you have to get f of infinity, which is limits s tends to 0 s times f of s. Let me substitute limits s tends to 0 s times f of s is twice of s plus 1 whole divided by s square plus 4s plus 7. So how to solve this? Simply substitute wherever there is s, that is equal to 0, and you will see that this is resulting into 0. Naturally, f of infinity, which is considered as final value, that is f of t at t tends to infinity, is equal to 0. So as you can see, now it is verified also. Final value is 0, initial value is. Let's move to the next problem. Consider function f of t having Laplace transform f of s equal to omega naught upon s square plus omega naught square. And the ROC is real part of s greater than 0, then the final value of f of t would be. And some options are given. So you know that final value theorem. I'm using final value theorem because they're asking you final value of x of t, that is f of t. So f of infinity, we know very well, it is limits s tends to 0 s times f of s. Am I right? So s times f of s is omega naught upon s square plus omega naught square. So let us substitute s equal to 0 here. So when you substitute s equal to 0, you'll get answer equal to 0, which is option A. And let me tell you, option A is a wrong option. F of infinity is not equal to 0. Or we would say that we cannot be so sure that f of infinity can be 0. Why? I'll tell you. By observation, look at this f of s. You should understand that when f of s is omega upon s square plus omega square, its inverse Laplace is nothing but sine of omega naught t. So here, inverse Laplace of f of s, it's simply sine of omega naught t. And when it is sine of omega naught t, as you can see, amplitude over here, it is 1, and it is a sinusoidal function. Of course, it is multiplied with u of t. Then you'll get this kind of function. plus 1 is the maximum amplitude, minus 1 is the maximum negative amplitude, and this is what we call as a time scale. So when time approaches to infinity, you never know, right? Since it is a oscillatory function, you know that for oscillatory function, final value theorem is not applicable. If you remember, for oscillatory function, we don't use a final value theorem. Since it is oscillatory function, it will keep on oscillating between plus 1 and minus 1. So when time approaches to infinity, no one can give you a guarantee that exact what value it will take. So we don't know what can be the value, but at least I can make you sure that f of infinity will be somewhere in between minus 1 to plus 1. That is for sure. And therefore, I can say that option C is the most appropriate option, where f of infinity will lie between two values, that is minus 1 and 1. That is greater than minus 1 or less than minus 1, and so on. And therefore, I would say that option C is the correct option. I can clarify you on the other ground also. If you see poles of s times f of s, so s times f of s is simply equal to s times omega naught upon s square plus omega naught square. So poles are nothing but equating denominator to 0. So when you equate denominator to 0, it is s square equal to minus omega naught square, or you can say s is equal to plus minus j omega naught. Am I right? So now if you try to plot those poles would be plotted like this: j omega naught and minus j omega naught. As you can see, the locations of poles of s times f of s are not lying on left half of s plane, they are lying on j omega axis. If you remember, in the last slide we have already studied that final value theorem is not applicable when s into f of s poles are not lying on left half of the s plane. Here poles are lying on j omega axis and not lying on left half of the s plane, and that is the another proof that final value theorem is not applicable over here, right? So we have studied that final value theorem is not applicable when the function is oscillatory. Your function is oscillatory, and secondly, the poles of s times f of s are not lying on left half of the s plane. So these are the proofs that option C would be the correct option. The next problem is asked in GATE 2007. If the Laplace transform of the signal y of t is y of s, which is 1 upon s into s minus 1, then its final value is. So, and some various options are given. Let me use the direct formula to have the final value. So y of infinity, it is limits s tends to 0, s times y of s, then limits s is tending to 0, it is s times y of s is 1 upon s into s minus 1. Your s gets cancelled, and wherever there is s, substitute it is equal to 0, and you get y of infinity equal to minus 1. As you can see, again it is present in option A, but let me remind you again, this is wrong. And why this is wrong? Because you have to cross check always before you use a final value theorem. So let us see poles of s times y of s. So s times y of s is equal to s times y of s is 1 upon s into s minus 1. Your s gets cancelled, and if you check the pole is lying on right half of the s plane. So since poles are not lying on left half of the s plane, this is the first proof I have given why final value theorem is not applicable. Secondly, if the pole is lying on right half of the s plane, can I say that it is unstable? This is unstable system because we know that the system could be unstable, and in fact it leads to infinity when time approaches to infinity. So I can say that it is unbounded in nature. Option D should be the correct option. In this case, it should be unbounded in nature. And still, if you don't understand why it is unbounded, I'll give you one more try. I'll take this y of s. I'll take this y of s, which is 1 upon s into s minus 1. So I'll go for a traditional approach. So I'll try to take inverse Laplace. So since this y of s is given to me, it is not in that appropriate form. So let me go for a partial fraction. So I can write my y of s as a upon s plus b upon s minus 1. And if you calculate the value of a and b, then a is minus 1 and b is also minus 1. I'm sure you know how to get partial fraction now. This is your y of s. Now it is in appropriate form. Now I can go for inverse Laplace. So it would be y of t, which is equal to, we already had a negative sign here, 1 upon s means it is u of t, minus 1 upon s minus 1 would be e to the power minus t, in fact plus t, times u of t. So this is your y of t expression. And what you wanted to have is y of t when t is approaching to infinity. Let us substitute. When t tends to infinity, we know that u of t is a step signal, and step signal is always having its amplitude equal to 1. But minus of u of t will have amplitude equal to minus 1 even though time approaches to infinity. Therefore, minus of u of t will become minus of 1 when t tends to infinity. Then e to the power infinity, and this is still 1. Am I right? So please understand, u of t, even though t approaches to infinity, is always 1. So here e to the power infinity is infinity. So of course this would be undefined, or I would say it is unbounded, or I can say it is approaching to infinity. So even by the traditional approach, it is proved that a final value theorem wasn't applicable here. It was unbounded in nature. So unbounded is the correct option. So here option D is the correct option. So this is all about initial value theorem and final value theorem. I'm sure you understood the theorems thoroughly. You must have understood what are the terms and conditions to apply initial value theorem and final value theorem. Only if those are fulfilled, then it makes sense to apply initial value theorem and final value theorem. Thank you.